Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for the leadership that's meeting here, for the men and women that serve. May they serve well. May they serve with wisdom. May every decision that they need to make, may they have the wisdom needed in the moment that is needed to deliver. So, Father, we ask that you would just bless tonight, bless all the conversations, bless all the discussions, plus all things that need to be covered. Thank you for our leadership. Thank you for them serving well. And we ask that you just have your way tonight. Let all things be done. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Going on with Polk County. So, George?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and fellow commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts with you. As we scheduled this meeting, I had several conversations with your staff. He kept insisting that I give them a PowerPoint to plug in and be ready, but I promised them it was low tech. This is low tech. The closest thing to a PowerPoint is a handout, so I'm going to give you later, but I'm not going to give them to you now because you'll start reading instead of listening to me. So I'm going to wait till after I talk to give you the handouts. And also want to open by saying that I give the same presentation so that I make the same points and I give the same message to each of the municipalities that I visit. I think this is my 6th or 7th visit, and I want to make sure I tell the same thing to everybody, so that's why I go through this same presentation. I want to start the conversation on how Polk County and our cities are going to meet the demand for transportation in the years to come. New glasses. As you know well, the expanded tax base and growth does add more revenue to your budget. It helps you keep up with the increased cost of services, and those dollars help to improve funding for your law enforcement, fire protection, improve and upgrade spending for parks and recreation, allows you to attract and keep quality employees, and help meet other growing general government demands. You also know your gas tax revenues, typically used for local street maintenance, is flat. As fleet mileage gets better, the gas tax gets lower. And you know transportation impact fees do not create new capacity. Impact fees simply pay for the capacity that's taken out of inventory. Impact fees do not and cannot be spent to fund shortfalls of the past. Cities and counties simply do not have a dedicated funding source of the magnitude necessary to fund major transportation projects. Here's some interesting statistics to share. In the 2020 census, Polk County population was put just a little over 725,000. 2 years later, the census update put our population just over 787,000. If you extrapolate that rate of growth, Polk County exceeded 800,000 last December. Another interesting statistic from our TPO, city, county, and state roads currently rated D or F throughout the county and cities and state roads. In 2022, there were 34 miles rated D or F. In 32, it's estimated to have 93 miles. And 10 years later, 303 miles rated D or F. Many of us recall the My Ride, My Road initiative 9 years ago. It was honest, it was sincere, but it was short-sighted and naive. And I will admit I was at the tip of that spear advocating that. That message boiled down to, trust me, send us your money, and we'll do good things. That formula grossly overfunded transit and grossly underfunded basic transportation. As proposed, the My Road, My Ride deserved to be defeated, and the message was clear. I was recently asked, so what has changed since that vote? Well, now we're 9 years further behind, and we're over 100,000 people, closer to 1 million population. Since then, we've learned several valuable lessons. One, there has to be more structure and specificity to any program of this magnitude. We also witnessed what passed and what failed legal challenges in other jurisdictions. While this is still a work in process, the Transportation Funding Initiative proposes the following: a 1/2 cent sales tax, 20-year sunset, the establishment of a transportation sales tax trust fund with clearly defined terms, conditions, and limitations of revenue. Identify sample candidate projects. If passed, we would be among 22 other counties with a 7.5 cent sales tax, both large and small counties. I will admit early on in my conversation, I anticipated or expected 1 cent sales tax. That would have made Polk County the single highest sales tax in the state of Florida. That's not a distinction I want. So we rolled it back to a 1/2 penny for 20 years, putting us among 22 other counties. Based on legal challenges in other jurisdictions, we also learned that current county commissioners cannot bind future commissions to specific projects 8, 10, or 12, or 15 years out. We simply do not know community needs that far away, but we can limit and define how the revenues will be spent from the trust fund. And history simply tells us that revenues will follow demand. As an example, a few years ago, County Road 557 from Lake Alfred to I-4 was on the unfunded list, number 34 out of 40. As population shift and traffic demand moved, that project moved up to number 4. And we're now in the way of buying right away and building that project. The biggest change and benefit to this new initiative is the willingness to share the proceeds with our city partners by using a variation of the state gas tax distribution formula. For example, Winter Havens would realize $92 million over this 20-year sunset period. Haines City, for example, would receive $47 million over the 20 years. As you know, local dollars are a strong magnet for state and federal funds. When we approach state and federal officials for project participation, the first thing they ask is, how much skin in the game do you have? In this plan, the cities and counties will be bound by the trust fund covenants. I'll use an example. Several years ago, the Board of County Commissioners adopted the school board impact fee. The school board can't collect the fee, but you, as a municipality and the county issuing building permits, do collect that fee. Early on, every 90 days, the dollars that were collected would simply write a check and send it to the school board. That changed some time ago, and the school board must make a formal request, identify the project, the budget, the timeline, and the BOCC acts on that request. I would expect a similar structure for municipal projects going forward with funding from this Transportation Trust Fund. As I mentioned earlier, one of our often heard comments several years ago, shouldn't the expanded tax base and growth fund pay for transportation? First blush, you would think so. In fact, our county budget this year saw a 17% increase in property tax revenue. Surely much of that has to be available for roads. But regretfully, that is not so. Imagine your numbers are not much different than the counties. About 84% of all county revenues come in silos with strings attached. Polk County Utility Operations Enterprise Fund, the Landfill Operations Enterprise Fund, Indigent Healthcare Operation has defined restricted revenues. Our Tourist Development Bed Tax has specific spending needs. All of these fund sources, the OCC and the cities, have the greatest spending latitude and discretion over ad valorem taxes, property taxes. In our case, the daily operation of the sheriff's office equals over 60% of all ad valorem. Add to that the cost of communication support, maintenance and insurance on his buildings, inmate medical expenses, both in the jail infirmary as well as outside hospitalization. That now number is approximately $15 million a year. Add to that our share of other public safety obligations, public defender's office, state attorney's office, coroner, parole and probation, the court system support. Now you're approaching 70% of all ad valorem. And as you know, then toss in the occasional unfunded mandate from our friends in Tallahassee. In recent years, the Board of County Commission has dedicated 1.2 mils of property taxes for new roadway construction. From this property tax source and some impact fee dollars, over a 4 to 6 year period, we can set aside enough funds to address maybe 2 or 3 projects on an ever-growing unfunded project list. This half-penny sales tax takes the burden off of property owners and puts it on all of us, including seasonal residents, tourists, and those just passing through. It is estimated that 17 to 20% of the revenue will come from non-residents. There is simply no dedicated funding source sufficient for major capital transportation projects. Contrary to popular opinion, local government is not immune from the ups and downs of the economic cycle. And like the private sector, local government has taken the same prudent actions that the private sector takes, just as we did in 09 and 10 when the economy went in the wrong direction. We, and I guess your predecessor, did the same thing, implemented hiring freezes, encouraged early retirement, no more cost of living increases, actual targeted layoffs, and deferred capital expenses. Should this initiative pass, the first half penny would be collected at 12:01 a.m. New Year's Day, January 1, 2025. The last half penny would be collected at 11:59 p.m. New Year's Eve, December 31, 2044. The last project to be completed would be several years thereafter. I don't have to tell you about the growth facing our cities in Polk County. We're literally standing at the water's edge, staring at a tsunami heading our way. But importantly, whether we do this or not, we do nothing. 2044 will see Polk County's population near 1.2 million people, over 200,000 kids in our school system, over 900 school buses on the road every school day, well over 200 calls per day for fire and EMS services, and well over 500 calls per day for city or county law enforcement. Our jail population will have doubled. Except our friend Grady Judd, no other elected official will be in office in 2044.
Hey, wait a minute, George, right here.
Well, speaking for myself, I may not be here in 2044. Be it as it may, I strongly believe it's our responsibility collectively to meet this obligation, not only for today and tomorrow, but the next generation and the next generation. My final observation is, if not us, who? If not now, when? The most important question becomes, if not this, then what? Give me an alternative, a better idea. Doing nothing is simply not an option. In closing, Polk County
Before I move into it.
And where I want to spend my allocation, much like we do with the school board. Okay, that 5-year plan is approved. Come back in, 4 years and give us your next 5-year plan. It's not going to be a pot of money that, as it's collected, it's going to be shoveled to the municipalities to do with what they want. It's going to have covenants and restrictions as to how it's applied. I share your concern, and that's why I think it has to have that kind of structure. When we first started collecting impact fees for the school board, we just write a check every 90 days and send them the money. Wait a minute, those are impact fee dollars, and there are guidelines and statutes that define how that money is spent. So we adopted a policy. Give us your ask, we'll make the decision, and we have not funded any legitimate requests. And I would expect that to be the case. We can't predict where the hot spot is going to be 17 years from now. But that board's in charge at Winter Haven, and the boards in Bartow at that time, when that 5-year plan comes forward, say, yes, this is reasonable. Traffic patterns have changed, work patterns have changed, commuting patterns have changed, and be able to reflect and react to that change.
So would you envision, for example, Polk County School Board has a half-cent sales tax committee. Would you envision something similar being created for oversight of this program that's going to take non-elected officials?
No, that's exactly why Hillsborough County's initiative got defeated. They abdicated that responsibility to a lay board. And that was one of the reasons it got reversed by the Supreme Court. You can't delegate that responsibility to unelected officials. Now, you can have an advisory committee go through that process. But I would recommend, and again, work in progress, I would recommend that the guidelines be written such that the cities know what to ask for, the counties know what to approve, and we have a rolling 5-year plan.
Not to disparage the Polk County half-cent sales tax
Not-
committee, because they're doing an awesome
Yes.
job. So.
Yes.
Anybody else? George, I got a couple of questions. Do you have like a committee form to who's who to kind of help you sell this, or is it just you now, or?
Well, after I get consensus of my board to put it on the ballot, then yes, we'll start developing that
Okay.
support group. Until I get commitment to get it on the ballot and let the people decide, we haven't put that together yet.
And would you like a letter of support from us, some sort of a proclamation? What are you asking other commissions or other cities to do for you?
Letter is fine, simply address it to the county commission, urging them to put it on the ballot in November 2024. Now, you know, the cities and the counties are restricted by the state on advocacy. We got a limit to
Right.
education. So this is not to speak in favor of it or against it, just simply requesting that it be placed on the ballot. And I would think Mr. Murphy would agree with that request,
Sort of,
sort of.
yeah. I think I'd like to study that a little bit
Sure.
more, but you're generally correct. Yeah.
Yes.
And my last question has to do, it's kind of along the lines with Commissioner Yates. So let's say we go through this and we're estimating Winter Haven's going to get $90 million or something. Do we have the ability to go out and bond part of that money or some of that? And will that be a sliding scale based upon population or what, how it will actually determine? And then the last part is, well, go ahead. I'm curious as to how that's going to be allocated.
The formula for retail merchants collect gas tax, send it to Tallahassee, they stir it around, skim all some of it, and send it back to the county. The counties then distribute back to the municipalities based on a formula that's been in place for years, perhaps decades, I'm not sure. But that formula is based on two main elements: population of the municipality and the lane miles of road within that municipality. And of course, that's going to change with time. Population is going to go up, lane miles are going to go up. So that will change over time. So that's the formula. And it is predictable based on certain assumptions. And in my non-bond counsel role, I would think with that dedicated funding source could be bonded. But again, council will have to give you advice on that. But I think it would be. You can, it is a predictable funding source that could be used to for
Okay.
bonds.
Can you expect, what was I going to say? What am I trying to think of? I was just trying to say something. Does it, the money that Winter Haven gets is only based upon our city limits, our municipality? Because once we get out, what I'm talking about is State Road 544. We're trying to figure out how to 4-lane that all the way up to Highway 27. And OT's over there backing up, but that's going to be a very expensive project, and we're going to have some skin in the game on that, even though it's not necessarily a Winter Haven road, but it's really important to Winter Haven. So that's why I'm asking about bonding, and if our 90 million is going to be just for Winter Haven roads, we probably couldn't use it for 544.
Well, again,
theoretically.
the unincorporated area of the county, which is reflected on the map I gave you, shows the roads that today are priority. 6 months from now, that priority is going to change. But I give it as an example, roads such as, because again, we can't absolutely commit. But to answer your question, I think there are transportation networks that are mutually beneficial to the city and the county and the state, where there could be an interlocal agreement where we each dedicate a proportionate share of those funds for that specific project. That project came through the process as a CIP request and the cooperative funding of all the parties. So I think that, again, give us the opportunity to recognize that our residents, our visitors, our citizens don't necessarily confine themselves to municipal boundaries.
Okay.
And transportation is a mutual benefit to all of us. So there will certainly be opportunities where their partnerships are appropriate.
My
Mr.
last-
Mayor, if I could just add to that, I think that, as Chairman Lindsay has said, the opportunity to leverage local dollars and county dollars against state dollars and even federal dollars for that matter to bring to fruition grant opportunities, projects that would be specific to the local area. And Mr. Lindsay, please correct me if I misstate this. Can't use these dollars for paving roads. You can't use them for routine maintenance and upkeep. This is for expansion within your system, correct?
When I first went on the roadshow with that, that was my intention. And while that continues to be my preference, that the focus and the priority should be on capacity projects, because that's the choke point. But at the same time, the needs of each municipality are a little different. And not every municipality has capital projects that can use these kind of dollars, that we can use them for multimodal opportunities, not as a primary beneficiary, but as combined. So if it's a certain area that needs a resurfacing that has other tangential benefits, that would certainly be favorably considered. Bike trails, sidewalks are part of that multimodal umbrella that would be included in the process. Again, the focus is capacity, but not to the exclusion of everything else transportation related.
And I offer that question, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, because if these dollars were in play today, if this had been executed, say, 5 years ago, and those buckets begin to fill, projects like the Pollard Road extension, that is a local road that we're responsible for, that enhances, expands capacity. Some type of bypass that goes from State Road 544 down to Buckeye Loop, as we've talked about for a number of years. That is an additional road that relieves congestion within the system. So there are projects certainly today, and I would anticipate that there will be projects as we go forward that will very much address some of the transportation and traffic congestion issues that we have.
Final question, George. Do you anticipate, we're getting ready to hear from Aaron Killebrew with Winter Haven Area Transit and the Lakeland Area Mass Transit. Do you anticipate any of this money being available for the groups like that to help with their mass transit needs?
I would not exclude it.
Would not exclude it. Okay. So you're saying there's a chance.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Multimodal transportation.
Mr. Birdsong had a question.
George, I know that you are pursuing trying to get it on the November ballot. From the standpoint of the November ballot, what will the county commissioners, when will they commit one way or the other? And I'd like to know that if they do commit, usually when you see a ballot initiative for the people to vote on, there's a lot more detail than, and I have a myriad of questions that basically there's no reason for me to question you about those here now, even though I do. But the thing is that when and if it goes on the ballot, there are just a lot of things
Yes.
a lot of button downs that would need to be. And I understand what you're doing.
Let me give you the calendar backing up, Mr. Birdsong, with November 5th, 2024. That's the day we go to the polls and we vote for a variety of issues and people and offices. November 5th, 2024. ballot language has to be committed to the supervisor elections, I believe, in early August of the same year. But it has to be approved by folks in Tallahassee even earlier than that. And therefore, the draft of what that looks like and the ordinance that implements that has to be written. So we're looking at a schedule that my board is going to have to make the commitment, probably no later than November of this year, Thanksgiving time, to say, yes, we want it on the ballot. Then that then starts the wheels rolling to start crafting the ordinance, crafting the language, crafting the trust representations in order to bring this all together. And from perhaps January until midsummer is going to have to be a viable campaign by interested citizens in order to advocate for or against it.
So the county, as a body, will draft it
Yes, sir.
with no input from,
Absolutely input from our municipal partners. Yes, sir.
Tracy had one.
I just have a question about the unincorporated area population.
pay them based on a fee for service.
In other words, they don't get paid anything unless they perform. Is that right?
Until they actually do the project.
Until they do the project, and then their fee is already set. We've already negotiated that, and that's what's in this contract.
Yes, sir.
And I was a little concerned that what we were led to believe that the contract was we could get out of it anytime we want, and we really can, because if we don't like what they're doing, we just don't give them any more business. Is that
Yes, sir. That fact, and also, Mr. Murphy, there is a termination clause at 15, section 15.
In the Martin
So,
County.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Termination for cause.
and the $300,000 that we're keeping locally, that you're going to administer that for down payment assistance? Is that correct?
So now, when we talked about the 300,000, that was an estimate of partial of the funding. So what I said last week was 500,000 probably for rehab, and then 300,000 for in-house. So those are estimates. But yes, we will be doing at least two of the strategies in-house. But we still have, like $1.6 million. So we were only taking half of that projected total.
And to further explore the conversation you and I had, because apparently I've done some research, and apparently the need for rental assistance is great. And unless we amend our agreement that we just voted on last month, LMAD, what was that agreement called?
The
LHAP.
local,
What is
yes.
it?
Housing
Yeah,
Action
LHAP.
Plan.
right.
That if we don't amend that, then we can't use any of the SHIP money for rental assistance. But if we do amend LHAP, the LHAP, we
Yes,
can
sir.
use some of that money for rental assistance. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, how the program works is because the majority of funds are supposed to be designated for home ownership activities. So what they allow us to do on the SHIP is we could have up to 15% of the total funds delegated to rental assistance. So using those numbers, what we would have right now, roughly $240,000 for rental assistance, plus any program funds that we have already collected, say from those who have satisfied their mortgages, because there is like a lien that's placed on homes, for down payment assistance. So if they pay those loans, if they want to refinance or get out of the contract any kind of way, they have to pay the funds back that was initially provided to them. So we have funds probably I would estimate about $120,000 program income that we could use along with the 15%
Okay.
for rental assistance.
So you're talking over 300,000,
Yes, sir.
assuming we rewrite the LHAP form, the LHAP agreement.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to encourage my commissioners to give that some thought, that we might want to redo that, because rental assistance is the thing that's really needed that we need to address. And the other thing we may want to consider, and again, I'm putting this out to John, is, the agreement that we have with Hartford Winter Haven, which does our rental assistance, only allows us to support Winter Haven people, Winter Haven city limits. So if we expand this LHAP and rewrite it, we may want to expand that. Since this is not city taxpayer money,
I suspect that you're probably going to be limited to spending that kind of money, the SHIP money or the LHAP money, probably only within the city limits. That would be my
even if
initial-
we rewrote the LHAP
Yeah.
to allow like Winter Haven service area potentially.
My sense is that
Yes.
money is only to be expended within the municipal limits of the city. And then Diane's
That would
certainly
be
a
correct.
greater expert on that than I am, but I would be very surprised if we would be permitted to do that for that bucket of money.
That is correct. And the reason then is because Polk County receives their own allocation of SHIP funds to do precisely what they want to do with those funds.
Okay. Well, maybe we can coordinate with Polk County or something. I just keep thinking about other areas in Winter Haven that are Winter Haven people, Winter Haven children that we could help that are not in the city limits, but
Yeah,
the
so the
Winter
county
Haven
would be
address, you know.
responsible for anyone outside of the city limits of Winter Haven.
Only the county could do that.
The county would be, yes, sir.
And do you have a working relationship with a county person that does what you do? That
I pray so.
Okay. I figured you did. Okay, well, I just wanted to bring that up to our other commissioners so that, because I'm going to ask that we consider doing that soon, you know, at some point, and maybe rewrite this thing. So 'cause
Okay.
rental assistance, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert, not me, but isn't that really a real need is?
Yes, sir. It really is. And one of the things that most other jurisdictions are doing has been rental assistance. And we didn't put it necessarily in our LHAP because we were looking at other strategies that had not been done for quite a few years. So again, we can add that strategy and get what SHIP calls it, Florida Housing Coalition calls it, a technical revision. So what happens is I would draft the LHAP, send it up to Florida Housing Finance, and then they will either approve it or disapprove it. And we'll go from there.
Like we did before.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Good.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say that I'm not in favor of rental assistance. I think, not because I don't think there's a need, but I do believe that the need for the other areas that we're funding is so much greater than what we're going to be able to provide in this city, that those monies, as much as we can, should go towards those areas. Now that's what I feel. And I do know that there are other organizations that do provide rental assistance. And so from my perspective, I would not be in favor of revising to provide additional rental assistance above what we're already doing with Hartford Winter Haven. I needed to.
I have to say I'm puzzled by that, but you know, that's okay. That's why we have different people up here.
That's why we all are here. We all have.
Good.
My question would be, if we did that and rewrote that, it's not necessarily going to restrict us at that point to say that 200,000 or whatever the amount is has to be spent on rental assistance.
No,
It's just that it can be spent on
right.
rental
And it
assistance.
cannot exceed the 15% plus any program income that has come in.
So with that, I would support it as long as there were caps in there and overlays to say, you know, this is the maximum you can get, and this is consecutive months, and there needs to be
Well, we would have to do
rules
that.
along with that. But given the fact that it just gives us another tool in the tool chest, so that, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, if for some reason we don't expend all of the funds in that one area, we have it available to potentially help in the other.
Correct.
Had we had this last year, would we still have $1 million that we didn't spend? Or do you think it would, is that, I'm asking you to speculate, I guess, but
Well, I think if we had done any of the other strategies, we would not have this much money.
your
to
head's
spend.
down. That's okay. Well, all I know is this is one thing I have learned about the homeless coalition and everything. The best way to attack homelessness is to keep people from becoming homeless. And the only way to do that is help them when they can't pay their rent, instead of putting them on the street and trying to find a place for them. So, I mean, I'm all want to hear what Mayor Pro Tem Birdsong has, what his heartburn is with it. I want to listen to it, but I just know that the whole idea is to keep people in their houses instead of trying to find them new places. So, anybody else?
I think you do that with the funding, though, that we currently have. It's those people have homes that need repairs and need things, and that's going to keep them long term in their homes too. So,
Well, the rental assistance is gone quickly. I mean, you can put a,
and
it
it
goes
is
fast.
a lot easier to give rental assistance and keep them in where they're renting rather than try to find a new place because there is very little availability.
Sounds like we may need to wait to get another commissioner
That's
up here before we make that.
Because I mean,
That's what I was going to ask Mayor and Commissioners. This
Hopefully
is,
in November.
I think this is great dialogue, but before I, give direction to staff to go and either do a technical amendment or revision to the LHAP, I just, it sounds like I need some clarification if that is something you want us to pursue, some consensus to that, because I'm not real sure where it stands just yet. But you do have a motion on the floor with respect to your consent agenda, so I don't want to cloud that issue with it. But we can either give you time to think about that and come back for further discussion on it, or we can continue the dialogue this evening.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we do have a motion on the floor, and I will, we've already closed the public hearing. We open the city commission meeting. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay.
And establishing an effective date. General location subdivision is generally located south of Eloise Loop Road, west of Pollard Road. Thank you.
Thank you. City manager.
Mayor and Commissioners, LGI Homes Florida LLC is requesting final plat approval for the Peach Crossing subdivision. This is a 13.6 acre subdivision. Contains 52 building lots, 7 common lots. The internal roadways will be dedicated to the Peach Crossing Homeowners Association. Water and sewer will be owned and maintained by the city. All drainage conveyances, stormwater management areas will be maintained by the HOA. Performance bond in the amount of $1,244,668.47 has been submitted to cover the cost of the remaining infrastructure items needed to be completed. It was developed according to the requirements contained in PUD Ordinance 021-11. Water service will be from the Winter Haven Water System. Wastewater will be treated at Plant 3. Additional right-of-way has been dedicated to Pollard Road. Staff is recommending the City Commission approve Resolution R23-40. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners?
I just have a question. Okay. T, in the financial impact,
Yes, sir.
it says using a estimated taxable value of $225,000 per lot.
That is constructed lot.
That's
Correct. That's after construction. That's lot plus
I
home.
know, but I'm just saying that based on what we are seeing other places, what's
That's about what we're seeing, sir. When new homes come on, that's about the average.
it is.
Thinking it's lower or higher,
I was thinking it was higher.
higher than what we've seen elsewhere. That's pretty consistent with what we've seen as of late.
Yeah, that's pretty consistent. And we also have to keep in mind that the majority of these lots after the first year are going to be homestead exempted as well.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve Resolution R-23-40.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve R2340. I'll close city commission meeting, open the public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak to this item, please do so at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and reopen city commission meeting. Questions or comments, commissioners? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. 11B on your agenda is R2341. This is a request by Four Star Real Estate Group. City Attorney, would you read by title only, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution R23-41, a resolution confirming the acceptance of improvements, infrastructure, and dedications in favor of the public city of Winter Haven is notated on that certain plat entitled Harmony on Lake Eloise Phase 1, recorded in the office of the clerk of the Circuit Court in Fort Polk County, Florida, in Plat Book 196, pages 45 through 50, Public Records of Polk County, Florida, and authorizing the city manager to release the performance bond posted to guarantee completion of required improvements in infrastructure. General location subdivision is generally located east and west of Westlake Eloise Drive, north of Eloise Loop Road. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager?
Mayor and Commissioners, Four Star USA Real Estate Group requests the commission accept certain improvements and dedications as noted on the plat for Harmony on Lake Eloise Phase 1. Subdivision consists of 61.14 plus or minus acres.
You got anything?
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm going to ask Eric to just give a quick, brief overview of this. This is first reading, so we'll be brief with it. Yes, sir. Mayor and Commissioners, the property subject to this request contains 22.57 acres and consists of 3 existing industrial warehouses and supporting infrastructure. The subject property is located within the Florence Villa CRA. The petitioner looks to develop the subject property with a mixture of multifamily residential and commercial uses consistent with the primary activity center future land use. There's a table in the fact sheet that outlines the densities and intensities allowed under the future land use. The proposed PUD conditions provide standards for the following items: lot and building requirements, landscaping, signage, roadway and pedestrian connections, and electric vehicle charging. The surrounding uses are notated. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the primary activity future land use. There are also charts, tables in your fact sheet denoting the public infrastructure impacts. There is capacity in all public infrastructure areas except for transportation concurrency. Martin Luther King Boulevard is projected to have to be in the negative capacity for transportation. However, it is important to keep in mind that this is within the city's transportation concurrency exception area. We will be requiring a transportation study and requiring mitigation as part of its development. All public notification requirements have been met. In conclusion, the petitioner's request to rezone the subject property from I-1 to PUD is consistent with the primary activity center. It is consistent with unique and innovative design techniques required. It is consistent with the Florence Villa CRA plan, goals, and policies. There is adequate infrastructure and the maximum build out under the required PUD. There will not be significant roadway capacity on Martin Luther King Boulevard. But again, it is within the transportation concurrency exception area, and we will be connecting to existing city grid to mitigate impacts. The Planning Commission did recommend approval at its July 11th, 2023 regular meeting, and the staff does recommend approval of ordinance 02237.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Commissioners, any questions or comments or?
Oh.
One question. Oh, yeah, Brian.
Do you think Motor Pool Road is, looking for the right word, currently inadequate for this? Is there going to be any trouble getting east and west on Motor Pool Road from Highway 17 all the way over to Avenue Y and then Martin Luther King?
I anticipate that if they connect to Motor Pool Road, there will be improvements that will need to be made to Motor Pool Road. It is currently a substandard roadway.
But those improvements would be made along
Yes, sir.
with this project, and that'll remain 2 lanes.
It would remain two lanes, yes, sir.
And we would pay for those improvements, or
They would do their fair share, which is what they can do along their frontage. They would dedicate right of way, and they would expand to a standard roadway width.
One of those projects that we had access to a big bucket of money in the county.
Yeah, we were just
I've got a
talking
half a
about
penny.
What?
I've got
Yeah,
a half a penny.
Everybody hold up their
I've
hand.
got a half. If we put all these together.
Yeah.
In the workshop, we talked about the development plan. And so the development plan, when we talked about it Wednesday, you were saying that probably the first phase would not be the new construction. It would be utilizing the warehousing, because they're using that now, because after the meeting, I actually rode by there and saw that the lights were on, and also that there are several tractor trailers that are parked there from Winter Haven Building Supply. So they're
Correct.
currently using it.
They're currently using the existing warehousing. The plan is to start from the north side in the greenfield with the new development. It's my understanding it's a townhome product. That would be the first phase. And then as the market conditions warrant redevelopment, the warehousing uses would be eliminated and replaced by
Okay.
either more residential or mixed use
Oh,
commercial.
and you're talking with them, have they given you any kind of timeline as to?
No, they do wish to proceed with phase one. I believe the applicant's representative is here, but they do wish to proceed with phase one at this point. And then as market conditions warrant transitioning out of the industrial uses and into the other uses, they would make the calls on future phases.
So any other questions or comments? So we're really not voting on any kind of